All right, so here we are. We're looking at actually round 5 of Fright Night 14. This is Shadowforce versus Potenzia. If you're watching here on the live stream on Twitch, which if you're watching this on YouTube, check out the link in the description, then we already know the outcome. But I'm being told from people who watched it that it is pretty interesting. So, of course, this event is getting prizes supplied by the dev team. There's coffee up for grabs. And I, of course, am part of the content affiliate program. That means the Phobies team does give me coffee for producing Phobies content. This is a tournament. It's a tournament, and we're going to see who's coming out on top. Now, this was a clincher game. Like, this is a win and in. And I'm not going to spoil, but one of the players didn't make it. So, Shadowforce is going first here. I don't have the map bans and picks in front of me at all, let alone for this game. But this is kind of interesting. We got the snowball opener into... Like, these are very... And this is something that you'll notice from a lot of high-level players. It's kind of rare that you see them, especially in competitive settings, that you're going to see them do something that's completely off the wall. That it's like, hey, that's a phobia you never see. A lot of the time, it's, yeah, you get your standard snowballs and cassowaries, and in this case, Murder Wing. Although lately it's been getting replaced by Tooth Fairy, but that may just be a collection thing for Shadowforce. Everything's set to level 1 here, but there are no phobia bans, and the map bans that are aforementioned are done by the players. Each player bans out 2 maps. So we get a Hematic Gin Sting here that has been definitely asserting its dominance, we'll say, as seen in Monster of the Week, our weekly tournament series. Fright Night is a larger scale monthly tournament. So the early panic point advantage does go to our blue player, but a very interesting invade here from Potenzia. There really isn't a threat from Shadowforce onto the Hematic, and it of course can take a beating, but it could also beat feet and get out of here, sort of. I do like the aggressive push. Like, this positioning here from Potenzia is actually really cool. This threatens a lot where even if Shadowforce tries to go after the Gin Sting, it's effectively protected. And Shadowforce does get a pick down here, but yeah, you kind of have to retreat. The Stabby may come back to bite Shadowforce here because it's just a slow response. And then you get this real awkward setup where you gotta hide behind your heart and whatever. Obviously, everything's going to get clobbered with more bees. But now it really feels like the hammer's starting to come down from Potenzia. This aggressive position now stealing back the panic point advantage 4-2. And we get a little Goon. I think when I unlocked Goon, this was one of the first maps that I played it on. And we've seen some cool Blom plays on this map. But Potenzia is actually going to retreat, I guess, fearing for their life here a little bit. As far as potential invading force, of course, you have Snowball hanging out up in the northwest corner. Getting a little bit of damage going down on Luigi here. Potenzia's Luigi. And we get a Shove Shark, one of the new additions from the most recent anniversary update, second anniversary update. Of course, great play here with 1 movers, giving them that extra little boost so they can get into the fray. Is this... this can't be dead. There's no way this is dead, right? No, it just takes a beating. So, notably, Goon did not Blom. It's just knocking the crap out of Hematic Gin Sting. And, of course, we see a Shove Shark coming out from Potenzia as well. They have their own turret in Bo Mangles to definitely represent a threat here. So we're going to get some hits going down on Bo. But ooh, I like this. This is pretty cool. Up in the north, why put the snowball that close? You could, of course, put it one hex down and hit the Gin Sting. But this blocks the Gin Sting in and makes life really complex for that Gin Sting. Sure, you can kill it, but it's going to pull it out of position. You're going to have Stabby and Cassowary to help follow up, supplement additional damage. Is that enough? We'll find out momentarily. 13 keys available for Shadowforce. Had to back off with this Murder Wing. Unfortunately, it's just... Ooh, there's the Blom. Some heart damage. So that's a visual bug, the Jin Sting shooting backwards, but we get the Shove Shark into the Jin Sting advance, which leads to a dead stabby. That's a very good heads-up play by Potenzia. Honestly, I think I would have missed that one also. I don't know if Shadowforce missed it, or we'll see if Shadowforce was baiting a little bit here. All right, looks like it's just going to be a quick takedown here on the Jin Sting. Some additional damage going down onto Bo. Oh, a double kill. All right, I didn't realize Bo was that low. But Mr. Tramples. All right, here's one you actually don't see very often unless you've been watching Monster of the Week, where it has been making a big splash, and that is, in fact, Motherload. Motherload shows up a lot there. I don't know why everybody loves it in Monster of the Week, but it is loved in Monster of the Week. Now, Shadowforce has kind of accepted that their Shove Shark has done its job, because at this point, it's just not going to do anything else. Ooh, accepting the disease, Potenzia just... I mean, admittedly, the disease tiles are just not that strong. Ooh, those are some great takedowns there, clearing the path for the Hematic to go down as well. Temptress follow-up. I feel like Potenzia is doing this just to troll me. If you've been here on the stream before, you know how I feel about Temptress. So at this point, we're looking at a fairly healthy Potenzia team. Obviously, Hematic's in some deep doo-doo. Panic point advantage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is fairly significant. Like, Shadowforce's heart is getting pretty low. 6 keys remaining to 5. Is this... If you don't kill the goon... Okay, you're going to retreat back. Minotaur... Minotaur, honestly, I think is underrated, but I'm a little surprised to see it here. I feel like Shadowforce is just kind of saying, I need something tanky. I don't understand the Electric Hat at all. Remember, everything at level 1, the relationships between the Phobies are slightly different. And here, to be honest, like... Ooh, that's a good heads-up goon play. Getting the takedown. Can't get disease twice. At least not like this. Takedown on the cat. Although Shadowforce did make it a 4-3 panic point, we're getting sheep? Wait, what? Muffin I get, but sheep? Honestly, Shadowforce in shambles here. You burn the Motherload, so you can't, like, accidentally kill Boom with the AoE. Which means that a lot of these things are just super threatening. You essentially have a damaged Motherload and Clopster. Yeah, you got the Minotaur, but realistically, that's going to be challenging to get it to connect with a lot of things. Boomer the final Phobie. This doesn't feel great. Boom is actually going to get a connection here. Remember, Potenzia does have the advantage of the panic points at this stage. We're going to get a charge. Nope. Just 550 damage going down on the Rock Lobster. Shove Shark. So people have been calling for Shove Shark nerfs still. Honestly, I can get behind the idea. It's a utility phobia. It probably shouldn't be as much of a combat threat as it is. But down go 2 1-drops, and suddenly Shadowforce's team, 3 Phobies. Notably, Muffin gonna die? Down goes Muffin? Ooh, Shadowforce pulling it back, though. Pulling it back, though. Problem is you're down on panic points. You're going to be dead. You're already down on Phobies, essentially, because the Boomer is not interacting. Now you lose even more. And, of course, there's an electrical phobia on the other side. You just don't have the damage represented in order to actually close this game out. At least certainly not in your favor. GG. Well played. I'll pull that one for YouTube later, chat. That was actually really interesting, and honestly, I think I'd attribute that to... And I'm not trying to take anything away from Potenzia, but that felt like Shadowforce just made a bunch of errors. Am I wrong? Like, do you guys feel otherwise? Because it kind of felt like there were... It felt like Shadowforce was out of sorts to a degree, where... Like... The goon clearly caused issues. There were 2 bombs. Like, I kind of get the sense that when the I'm setting on my Madden. So like when the goon did this one and killed the murder wing, that felt like Shadowforce didn't think of that one. There was another one before that was a little more obvious, but it just kind of felt like Shadowforce took unnecessary damage on basically their entire team. Oh yeah, it was like this. I think it was the Stabby turn, the turn where Stabby dies. Yeah, it was this turn, I think. Like, this is a 1200 health Stabby. Like, that's a fairly healthy Stabby, and it just kind of felt like this turn was crippling. I do really like the idea of blocking this off so that the Jinsting can't participate. Like, that, okay, it's a sacrifice, but I can understand the goal. This Blom just chipped away, but the Shove Shark play here, like the Shove Shark repositioning of the Jinsting to let this happen, like that felt as though Shadowforce was not prepared for that. I don't know if that was literally the game right there, but it certainly felt like that was a serious issue. You can feel free to contradict me, Chad, if you feel like it was just a singular play or, you know, it was Phobie choice. Like, I don't think the Phobie choices were really that bad. I think the Mr. Tramples was a little weird. But Mr. Tramples is, I mean, it's not bad. And here, what's going on? All right. The Mr. Tramples is a little weird. Like, I don't know where this gambit came from. Like, why did Mr. Tramples, like, what did Potenzia see that caused Mr. Tramples? This seems kind of out of the blue. I don't really understand the Mr. Tramples. The thing is, though, like, why would you go Mr. Tramples? Well, the mobility's huge. Mobility's huge. It does represent a decent amount of damage. I mean, you got 550 damage, and then, of course, there are 3s there, and we all know how powerful the number 3 is in Phobies. Uh-oh. What just happened? My PC's being weird. I wonder if, like, my hard drive is dying or something. It actually blue screened last night after the stream while I was working on other stuff. I hope it's not dying. It's not that old, right? I don't remember when I got this SSD. That'd be a real pain in the balls. I have to upgrade to Windows 11 somehow anyway soon. So, anyway. Digressions aside, like, the Mr. Tramples, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. But I do feel like Shadowforce was kind of thrown for a loop here. Like, when was the last time we saw Mr. Tramples? Right? Like, it's just not a thing that happens very often. I can tell you one thing, well, actually, I was going to say, who's going to go on the cover for this? Probably Motherlode and Mr. Tramples, right? Like, those would be the most... This is the play I was talking about. I don't think Shadowforce saw this one coming. I think Shadowforce missed this one. So, like, if they missed this one, this is 600 health. This can't reach. So, I guess what they were thinking is, like, if Goon goes here and then Bloms... But, like, that's still bad? Why did the Murder Wing have to be there? Oh, the Murder Wing had to get used to kill the Jinsting. So maybe there was just no choice. This seemed wasteful. Like, that expenditure of the Motherlode ability seemed wasteful. I don't know. I'm not... What if this Electrocat was an AWOL? Would it have mattered? It still has 2,100 health, so this is 8. I think AWOL's what? 600 to 1? 500 to 1? 13? 16? I mean, I think you kill the goon here. Yeah, you get the goon anyway. I don't know if it makes a significant difference. Like, I just don't understand the Electrocat unless the goal is be a little bit tankier than alternative options. I mean, at this point, I think the game was over. There's just no real way for Shadowforce to combat. Actually, I don't know. I mean, this doesn't look terrible, Shadowforce's setup. Comparatively. The problem is that just like every commit that Shadowforce made, every time Shadowforce... Let me rephrase this. Potenzia would get a kill. Or Potenzia would put an enormous amount of damage on Shadowforce. Shadowforce would counter, and then Potenzia would punish harder. Every single time, it felt like Potenzia was coming up ahead in every single exchange, ultimately. The only things that went Shadowforce's way was, like, early in the game, you got some of these picks. But from here, like, literally from... This is turn 7, but it's Shadowforce's 4th turn. It feels like Potenzia is ahead, even though they're down on panic points here. Like, the positioning just feels way more favorable, in my opinion, towards Potenzia. I didn't love the stabby. I get going the stabby. There's already a turret on Potenzia's side, so you can try and respond with your own. But the turn that you slammed stabby... So you had 5 keys. I guess there isn't necessarily something better than putting another turret on the board. But the weird thing about this is you're going first, but you are the slower turret in this case. Like, Bowmangles is already on the board, already involved in the game to some degree. However, Shadowforce is getting, like, they're responding to a turret with with a turret, and it just doesn't feel great. I mean, you do get Hematic on the board. What do you do after Hematic? Shove Shark. I wonder if it would have been better to go Innocuous, because it was pre-Goon. The stabby comes out pre-Goon. Post-Goon, I think Innocuous looks kind of bad because the trifecta of Mario, Luigi, and Bowmangles is a serious problem. This turn, like, this also felt not great. It's like, all right, I put this down to 800. But then my Jin Sting... or my Hematic ends up at 700. And that doesn't feel good, because now this thing needs to get healed. I don't know, just like I said, it constantly felt like every turn Shadowforce was taking the worst trade. Potenzia was getting the better exchange pretty much every single time. Which felt wild. Because obviously Shadowforce is one of the best players in the game. And it just didn't seem to go their way.